Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Unlocking the Real Value of AI for Manufacturing. Today, we're going to talk about what AI actually means for small and mid-sized manufacturers. Not the hype, but the practical, achievable, high-impact opportunities available right now. Joining me today are three panelists who each bring a unique perspective. Amanda Jackson is a principal consultant with AMT, the New York MEP Center, serving the Southern Tier. Roland Ryan is the COO at Samscreen Incorporated, who, along with his engineering team, is actively building AI-powered tools to solve real-world manufacturing challenges. Rick Lloyd is a consultant specializing in IT automation and digital marketing at FuzeHub. A reminder that this session will be recorded and you'll receive a link to that recording later on. You'll notice at the bottom of your screen a Q&A button. Please feel free to use it if you have questions, but we'll wait for the Q&A until the end of our panel discussion today. Without further ado, let's get started. So I'd like to begin with some brief introductions. Rick, let's start with you, and then Amanda, and then Roland.
All right. Thanks, Steve. Hi, folks. Rick Lloyd. I've been a uh, person involved in IT slash digital marketing for 30 some years. Everything ranging from project management to technology planning and strategy. And I'm excited to be embarking on this AI adventure myself.
Thank you, Rick. Amanda.
Hey there, I'm Amanda Jackson. I'm a consultant at AMT and an engineer. I've been in manufacturing for over 20 years, and I manage our technology program at AMT, which helps manufacturers implement cost-effective, practical technology that gets real world results and good return on investment.
Excellent. Thanks, Amanda. And Roland.
I'm Roland Ryan. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Samscreen in the Southern Tier. Samscreen is a custom manufacturer of screen media for the aggregate business. We are the fastest domestic manufacturer of custom screens that we know of. And I personally, I'm a manufacturing engineer that moved into operations. I've got 32 years in manufacturing.
Excellent. Thank you to our panelists. And let's get started. Rick, I'm going to begin with you. In plain English, what types of AI matter most for a factory or production environment, and how do you translate these into opportunities for manufacturers?
All right. So there's really three types of AI that manufacturers are using. So the first one is generative AI, and that's probably the AI you think of when you hear the term AI. It's just talking with like Chat GPT to have it do things for you. So you might say, hey, you prompt it and say, attached is the manual for my VF7 CNC machine. You'd upload it, right? And then say, write a standard operating procedure for weekly maintenance of this device, formatted as a one-page document that's going to be laminated and posted next to the equipment. And that would go through and pop out a recommendation, and based on the parameters that you gave it, it'll fit it onto a sheet of or one sheet of paper that could be laminated and put next to the machine. Next one is predictive AI, and this is kind of a next level with AI where it's, let's say, doing machine failure forecasting or quality predictions or schedule impact modeling. And this type of AI requires historical data in order to kind of predict future behaviors or events. And then based on usage over a particular time frame, it can predict or provide feedback on when failures are likely to emerge and when maintenance on that piece of equipment should be done. The next type of AI is agentic AI, and that's AI that acts on behalf of you in response to well-defined triggers. So things like it moves data, it triggers workflows, it files forms, it routes information. So this type of AI is usually operates within tight parameters that can handle well-defined tasks from start to finish without human interaction, which is the key. And the most typical actions are routing of information to the right people, or maybe enhancing information with additional data before a person gets involved. And then another more typical one is a website chatbot on a support page, right?
Sure. Good, Rick. Thank you.
Yeah.
Amanda, when you meet with manufacturers in the southern tier, as you do often, what are some of the most common misconceptions and worries that they have about AI?
Yeah, the first most prevalent worry is what is going to happen with my data. They're worried about data security. Where does my data go when I enter it, and who really can see it? And so, one of the things we talk to manufacturers a lot about is making sure that at a minimum, you're using paid tools and that you're doing some research and making some decisions around what happens with your data, what you can enter and feel comfortable doing so versus what will you leave out. After that, the next questions that come up are, hey, I hear that it either gives you generic answers or wrong answers. And usually that's around prompting, and making sure that you're understanding how to verify the accuracy, because both of those things can be true. But there's techniques and ways to make sure that what you're entering and what you're asking and how you're checking it, all guarantee kind of good results. And then the last, and I think this is kind of the biggest misconception, is that you have time to get to it later. You know, when you have time or when things slow down in manufacturing or the AI has been out for a longer period of time, that's when you'll start to practice with it. And the reality is that will make it even harder. You know, peers, customers, and lots of competitors are all using AI. And so the best, you know, results that manufacturers get are from practicing with it now and making decisions now about what to enter into AI so that they can, you know, practice in a planned way.
Makes good sense. Thank you for that answer. And Roland, you're the voice of the manufacturing community here as well. So you're about 90 days into your AI journey. What made you decide to dive in now, especially to Amanda's point of not waiting? And what did those first few weeks look like?
So Amanda's point is really kind of spot on. Our executive team really was the driver, worried about missing out on opportunities this would give us. We've looked at automation and production, but never really that information processing side of things, that indirect labor side of things. The quote I remember from the owner was, "This could be as big for us as email." And I think that is a good way to look at it. So we started the process actually with Amanda and with AMT. We did group sessions, not just in engineering, but really across functional areas. I will say I was skeptical up front. I had used some free versions of things and wasn't really impressed with answers I got back. But kind of after going through orientation and talking about some bigger groups, we found people first immediately started using. Our financial people started using it right off the bat to what I would call supercharged spreadsheets. It is, rather than going through the order of equal signs and if then statements, you could, in plain language, say what you need in a cell and get complicated expressions out. Finance people did that immediately. My engineers that were writing code really started using it as, we have this blurb of code, troubleshoot it. We were talking with Amanda. We kind of came up with some cross-functional projects. And that's where things got a little weird, because we'd put something in and you would immediately get a response out that says, hey, the AI gets it. It knows what we want to do, but then it could not repeat it. And that was kind of where the whole learning process took in. I would say my big aha moment, there's frustration and AI can do something one day and it can't do something the next. My big aha moment was really on that prompt engineering. I found my people who found it the most limited were the people that would say, do this for me, and they detail. I took the approach of saying, I have this problem. This is how I am planning to solve it. Does that approach make sense? Would you recommend a different path? And it became for me a very high level troubleshooting assistant. It was a dry erase board with a very well rounded kind of partner. Um, so, really, that was kind of our driver. That's the initial success. So, that's where we are today. Results will vary. I think you need perseverance.
Good advice. All right, thank you. So let's move into our next segment, which is about concrete use cases and early wins. And Rick, I'd like to start with you again, if I may. You've automated complex data flows and troubleshooting and documentation using AI. What parallels do you see between those workflows and the pain points that manufacturers face?
Okay. So AI is really good at helping you enhance the quality of your data or how you interpret it, summarizing it and spotting inconsistencies. Um, so while I might be focused on data going into CRM systems, the same can apply to ERP, MRP, job quoting, or scheduling systems. Another example, and this is a common problem for lots of organizations, AI can help reduce dependence on the one guy who knows how to fix the system. So I've used AI, and I'm not a network engineer, right? But I've used AI to debug DNS issues or software code logic. Um, AI can help me do that work without necessarily having a background in network engineering. And the same approach can work for diagnosing workflows or system problems. On the manufacturing side, you can actually train AI on your systems or equipment and literally turn your troubleshooting into a dialogue with AI that can ask questions about your problems and help you diagnose the problem. Then it can provide recommendations on how to resolve it. Basically, AI can handle tedious, repetitive, common tasks. So, like in compliance, AI can generate reports. In manufacturing, it can also generate ISO docs, help you prepare for audits, and review non-conformance reports and summarize those for you. It can also automate multi-system workflows. So I use AI to move data between website sites and CRM systems and analytics tools. Manufacturers can do the same between ERP systems and spreadsheets, quality logs, maintenance records. Think about it this way. Uh, Almost every workflow that currently requires copy and paste or tribal knowledge or manual translation between systems is a candidate for AI automation.
It's good. And I'm really glad you used that word tribal knowledge because as the workforce gets a little older, this is going to come in handy. Amanda, what are some low risk, high value AI projects that you've helped manufacturers implement quickly?
Yeah, so Rick talked a little bit about troubleshooting, and that's one of the first places a lot of manufacturers start is in their maintenance department. Often that information is contained either in a PDF or on a shelf about how to fix the machine or what its spare parts are. And so that can be a great first win to just dump that file into AI and ask it questions. We've even had techs that have kind of just talked back and forth to AI without ever needing to type anything in and, troubleshoot schematics with finding a broken or inconsistent wiring and also, working on different sensors or those types of applications for adjustments. So that can be a really quick win. We've also had great results with hardware that connects with software. So an example is we had a manufacturer that was putting a new inspection camera right into their factory floor. And it was AI enabled. So the software itself had AI attached to it. In a half an hour, literally, it was able to evaluate the products that the manufacturer made, understand what was good and bad and start identifying defects for them. And in comparison to even a few years ago, that teaching process would have been multiple days, even weeks in some cases. So anywhere that there's hardware, often those different manufacturers of the hardware are incorporating AI into the software part of it. So that can be a great win as well. And then I think also just really helping manufacturers be creative, right? Everybody does a morning huddle. And often we're reading some text or some information that we want to talk to people about, whether it's safety or quality. But you can literally just add an image into an AI like Gemini or ChatGPT and get a video to be produced that you could show in 30 seconds of a forklift driving through a warehouse or some sort of quality defect and how it got manufactured. So it really is the great equalizer that helps us kind of respond quickly, but also, do these identify different defects or issues that we have in production really quickly.
Quickly being a keyword. Thank you for that, Amanda. So, Roland, you've described AI as a quote force multiplier for your engineering team. Can you share an example of how AI has enabled your team to tackle projects outside your normal wheelhouse?
Yeah, and it's not just engineering, it's kind of across the board. And I can go from um, kind of simple to broad. We're a little over 50 people, and I have two engineers in my group and about 40 production people. So it's a small indirect staff. So really, examples Rick gave, we've done, which are plasma tables. We have the machine manufacturer, the hypertherm information, the software, the feed rates, and we have built a chat bot that basically you can ask cut related questions to and get feedback right back out that doesn't involve calling the engineer to ask a question with. We had a as a manager of people, you never have the time to document everything you wanted to document. I created an app really after the very first session with Amanda with Claude that basically I could just dictate a brief description of conversation. I gave it templates of my previous work, and it could create a Word document of what I did. And to me, the interesting part of that is Claude taught me how to do that. Up front, it said, no, I can't do that because I don't have on a PC a voice recording. It said you'd have to use a different software and download a file. And I said, that all sounds like a pain. Do you have voice recording on Android? And it said, yes. And I said, if I dictate into my phone, how long before that same account is visible on my PC? And it said 12 seconds. So basically, in moments that I have free, I can start a new chat, I can dictate a conversation and have a Word document for posterity. And that was small. I mean, that was a very small amount of effort. We did manuals, data analysis. It is fantastic. As a custom manufacturer, we make between 8 and 15 custom made pallets per day for a product. The way we do it is we make a sheet for each day of the week, and I have this big Excel file that is each day's 8 to 15 pallets. And when I want to look at how much lumber am I using or what's the cost of a pallet, I would task somebody in my organization to grab 20 of those. We'd take a sample and we would guess whether that was the whole year. I took that whole year's file and I put it into, in this case, it was ChatGPT. And I got a list of the last 2,200 pallets I made, and I gave it my material breakdown and how I do it. And I have a cost, and I have a recommendation that I need to charge $12 more for my pallets. So, I mean, it was something not that I couldn't do on my own, but instead of having approximate results, I had exact results. And it was an hour's worth of effort, which might be a week of lag before and then time with it. I mean, for us, I think our big one is I have one of my engineers programs, and he is constantly in demand for things. We are trying to do something that everyone says we can't do with AI. And our goal was to do it without using our programmer. So that's our scheduling application, which we're going to talk about. But so that's kind of the force mode. That is people who wouldn't normally touch something are doing things that they didn't really have in their scope of this is approachable before. And it's been really interesting. I've been really surprised by how many people across of our organization have modified their tasks
Mhm.
with small input. So
Good. And just to be clear, Cloud is not an employee of AM&T. It's an AI tool, just in case anyone didn't know that. But Roland, I'd like to go a little bit deeper into something particularly innovative your team is working on. Do you have anything that you can share?
uh so we're creating our scheduling app. And what it is we are a low volume, high mix manufacturer. And my average order size is 3 pieces that are unique. And that's a lie in average because my most common order size is 1 or 2 pieces. I make product in build cells. I'm working on multiple products at the same time. And one product interferes with the other. There's kind of a forced idle time issue. A bad schedule will result in about 30% of the production of a good schedule. And since we make in days what everybody else makes in weeks, I don't know what I'm going to make tomorrow. I know it'll be a screen, but I don't know exactly which screen. So right now, our history is there's dozens of things you have to look at to figure out how to pair things. I'm good at it. My wire supervisor is better at it, but then it's an hour and a half in kind of those crunch things where we either optimize a schedule or we go through with kind of less performance. Um, so I went to the people before, the Amanda session that I knew that were involved in AI, and they said, "Oh, this is easy. You just get like 50,000 really good, successful schedule days, and you give it to AI, and it will learn what works, and then it will give you." I'm like, I don't have that. Then they said, "Well, it can't help you. AI is not good at scheduling." But we took the approach that if we write down the rules and we really get that well defined, um, and we use it not to schedule, but to create the software that schedules. And so what we're working towards is I can upload a daily schedule. I can tell it what's already in a cell started. I can tell it what cells are active, whether I'm working standard hours or overtime. And it will give me an optimized schedule to give for each table. It will print out a dispatch sheet essentially for each machine, and it will give me accountability. I can see what succeeded or what didn't. I can basically check off as I'm going. And what's funny is I took the rules portion of it. So I said, I'm going to work to basically define everything so nailed down that if this doesn't work, I can hand it to a professional code writer. So no matter what we do, we're not going to waste the effort. I can get to my same application. But my plant engineer took the approach of, I'm not going to worry about the rules. I'm going to worry about teaching AI the skills we need to generate the web application that we want. And we came up with kind of a pilot last week or the week before that I will say is exactly what I imagined from this. And it doesn't have all the information yet. But right now we're on track for in January, kind of rolling out a product that will dictate what our kind of schedule is without that frustration in the morning, that juggle of where we need to move things. And just in the process of developing this, I'm sitting here going, I could use this same kind of skill set in other areas where the schedule isn't as critical, doesn't have as much nuance, but could still benefit from the same thing. And I think the best thing is almost everyone that we encountered said we couldn't do this, and it's feeling like we're pushing into something that for us will be fantastic. Maybe some people think it sounds simple. Amanda's kind of seen our rules that we wrestle with, and there's a lot to it. But I'm really feeling good about the progress with it for people that had not touched it, and frankly, from my standpoint, was incredibly skeptical of its capabilities 90 days ago.
Nice. I like that story. They said it couldn't be done and we did it.
Yeah.
Excellent. So let's move to the next segment, which is about tools and model selection, what works and what doesn't. And this is a question for all of our panelists. Rick, we're going to start with you. Which AI tools or platforms have delivered real value for you, and which ones didn't live up to expectations?
Um, so I'd say I haven't dove too far into the agentic AI side of things, where it's tying into uh, real artificial intelligence interactions as opposed to controlling the flow of things closely. So I've seen great strides with using tools like Make and Zapier, where you have definite triggers and uh, definite destinations for the information. The dream around agentic AI is that you can enhance that information in the middle, and they're starting to make great strides with those tools. I just haven't tapped into them yet, and I'm excited to get to that point. Um, some struggles I've seen with AI, and this is also getting much, much better, is AI isn't real good at spatial analysis yet. And by that I mean knowing the size of things or locations of things from a spatial perspective. And an example of this, and this was working with a manufacturer um, is who makes lighting, right? And I'm trying to map a, a photo for uh, relative sizes for ADA compliance of where things can hang on a wall versus an individual. And AI just couldn't get the height of an individual relative to the rest of the things in the picture. And that was after probably 45 minutes of trying to make that work. Um, so those are the things that perhaps aren't working great. Now the things that I do find great are working with being iterative with the AI tools that I'm using. It's rare that it gets it right in the first attempt. But I'm finding that if you iterate with the tools like ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude, then it can really help you achieve good results. And probably the last one I'd call out is there's a tool called Julius AI, which is really good at deep code work or data work, and it's been a useful tool for me.
Good insights. Amanda, which AI tools or platforms have provided you with real value and which ones just haven't worked out?
Yeah, so I think the examples that I've given so far and also that Roland gave, they're all using large language models. So those same ones that Rick mentioned, Chat, Gemini, Claude, and they have very low cost for subscriptions. And so they've really delivered a lot of value because different folks across the company can use it. I've also taken the approach of kind of pitting the models against one another. So asking the same prompt across multiple different large language models and comparing them to one another, which has been really helpful and a great approach. Sometimes they each come out ahead or at different stages of which does what type of item better. For example, certain ones do better with creating images or video, and others do a little bit better with language or research. So comparing them has been kind of a great approach that's been helpful too. In terms of which ones didn't live up to expectations, the example I always talk about is um, Notebook LM. So, AI changes really fast. And when I first found Notebook LM, it was in its beta platform and it didn't live up to the hype at the beginning. It did not have a great interface and it was tricky to kind of use. And fast forward 3 months after its launch, and it is literally the platform that I recommend for manufacturers to use for training. It has great approaches to upload a document or information that you want to train on, and you can create a podcast like the click of a button. It also just allows a lot of interaction from different employees where they can ask questions without you having to be the resource. So, kind of moral of the story is every time I found where a platform didn't do what I wanted it to, somewhere 3 to 6 months later, it has developed that capability. And so just kind of keep watching out. I make sure I don't sleep on anything that I wasn't that impressed with a little bit ago because it keeps changing.
Makes sense. Roll, I'm going to ask you a slightly different version of this question, which is you've experimented with Claude, of course, and with Chat GPT and Gemini. How do you decide which model to use for which kind of engineering or coding task?
Um, I think it's tough. And I think it is to a certain extent personal and your own judgment because they do have different feels. We started out really, Amanda, when she was giving us the overview, most of her things were in Chat GPT, and we were looking at chat and tailoring it to our exposure. And it was frustrating for me up front. It didn't really resonate. I toggled to Claude to try it. Um, and just the conversation was more fluid. The troubleshooting was more fluid. I will say that when I first defined this scheduling project in Claude, it gave me a roadmap of 7 documents that I should focus on as kind of the building blocks of all of this. And everything that I've done, even with missteps and with other things, that 7 documents has really been the route I'm still following from kind of a first conversation, maybe day 2 into the thing. The difficulty is um, I've had a difficulty, and what led me to go back to chat and then get into Gemini is as you're evolving what you're putting into a project to get your scheduling rules right, you'll find something that didn't work in the language. And we started describing this project kind of as how I would explain it to you, how I'd explain it to somebody in manufacturing, like how we schedule, what we look at. And it was very conversational, very much a kind of a discussion, right? Like you do an executive summary. The problem is it didn't understand necessarily all the technical points of it. And when I'd edit it, it kept keeping all the versions in kind of in the background. So you'd correct an error, and then 4 conversations later, the error that you'd already fixed came back up. And the way I got to Gemini was actually Claude suggested I go to Gemini for document so that you could use Google Docs and Google Sheets to have one living thing. I've had AIs tell me they could do something, and then when you say, really? It says, no, not really. And it points you to someone else to do it. So it is like, to me, it's a feel thing. I thought I had written off Chat GPT as not really liking it, but it is kind of my core. If I want to do just some raw Excel spreadsheet data manipulation, where up front I really like Claude for it, I found Chat GPT works better. It's more accurate than that. If I want to troubleshoot a problem, I go to kind of Claude. And right now, Gemini is the kind of the least used one I've done, but it's kind of the one in the background that's doing kind of the document management, and it's kind of they're looking out on each other. The big thing I will say that we learned is, at least in our experience, there seems to be a significant difference between the free versions of all of these AIs and even that first tier $20 a month thing. And I will give a very clear example. Before we had gone through our whole sessions, we wanted to move to a point-based attendance system. So I went into AI and I said, give me examples of a point-based system. And what I would get is rhetoric that said, yes, many people use a point-based system, but I didn't get a table. I didn't get anything about this infraction gets this point. How do you emphasize? As soon as we went to a paid version, I could actually get an exact, tables recommended. I could have a discussion with, I am less concerned about lateness than I am about absenteeism. How do I shift weighting to cover that? And that was it's $20 a month. And you got to a level that actually gave me something I could put my head around, print, and be in that position. So I think it's tough. I think it is, most of us have ended up moving to Claude. When I talk to my plant engineer, he dabbles with all of them, but all of the code work he's doing in Claude after we kind of started leaning into that. So I think a lot of it is your style. I think a lot of it is how the answers kind of to feed back to you. And then me, I will just end up getting frustrated when one forgets how to do something. I will toggle over it till it learns that skill again and just go back and forth. So there has been, I want to say it's like it feels two steps forward, one step back. Sometimes it's two step backs and one forward. I will also say the thing that surprised me, but I feel the best about is Claude is the one that directed me to Gemini for document management. But really, I learned the lesson to get away from conversational inputs. I'm giving it all the inputs for my build tables as if I was writing code, like cell names equal this, and tables equal this, and these are the columns. So it's not like I would explain it to you. It's as if I was handing it as lines of code to someone. And our success really picked up once we got away from that conversational and write it as if it's lines of code, and now it's manipulating it very nicely. So.
Good advice, good example too. Thank you for that. Let's move on to our next segment, which is about implementing AI successfully. And Amanda, I'd like to begin with you. What does a successful first AI project look like for a small manufacturer, and what pitfalls should companies avoid?
Yeah, so, you know, good first projects look like quick wins for a department. For an employee, it means something that's time saving or providing some sort of better quality output. And the best actual initial projects we've seen are things that employees have thought up themselves within the department. They've taken a task that feels like a lot of labor or a lot of data crunching or something that they don't love to do and figured out how can I enter it into AI? Or it's something that's like super time consuming for them. So, a purchasing department evaluating a supplier and kind of going back and forth with AI is an example that we've seen that, then the purchasing folks have been really excited about because it was a pain point for them. And, all they had to do is kind of look at the information and vet it versus find it and source it themselves. Even with sales, trying to write an email, we've seen where, using that conversational language has been really helpful and, just a thought partner so that you don't have to constantly go to a colleague or call your boss or an engineer and ask those questions. Just getting people comfortable kind of using it. I think the biggest pitfall that we see is leaders in an organization not having conversations with their team about AI and not really having a policy of what's okay or not okay to put into AI. And the challenge with that is this risk that an employee will inadvertently share something in AI into a free tool or something that's considered confidential or restricted information, not realize it, and then, there's a data concern. So that's, I think, the key is for people to start having those conversations and decide, like, what can go into AI? What do we feel comfortable with? What's okay for our industry?
Sure, makes a lot of sense. Roland, so you've already shared some great lessons. I'm wondering if you could explain a little bit, what lessons have you learned as an early adopter that you think other manufacturers could keep in mind or should keep in mind?
Um, so I think it's hard because I think it's tailored. I think um, what I would recommend anybody starting into it, start in an area that you have expertise. Hallucinations in AI are a real thing. Very first times using it, you'd go into a subject and you would get like four statements back, and three of them were enlightened and informative, and the fourth one was complete garbage. So I think you have to come at it to develop trust or a healthy skepticism. So that what it gives you until you kind of learn how to build that skill. One of the big things in doing AI tools that I tell my people is always do it from the aspect of the end user. It's great that you can get AI to do something, but is anybody going to step in and use the tool that you're making? I think there's a propensity to create procedures that nobody's going to open up and look at, but great, you've created the procedure. So I think that real world function is somebody going to use the thing afterwards are big. But it's like it is really surprised me. It's open mind, it's perseverance. If you had asked me in a vacuum, I would say I would never use it for a search on anything because I always thought my Google foo was really strong and I could find what I was looking for and vet things. And I've just found it, it's really broadened what I'm open to see and doing it. And I 100% was a skeptic going into it. So I just, I think it's hard to say what'll lead to people's aha moments, but I think there's lots of opportunities. Keep your end user in mind.
Good advice. Rick, where do manufacturers typically get stuck when they're trying to integrate AI into existing systems, and what simple automations can they implement quickly?
Well, so there's a bunch of gotchas. I'll throw out a few, but I think the number one is kind of a fear of the unknown. If you're new to AI, you open the AI tool and you get an almost empty screen and a prompt that says, "Ask me something." And where do you start? So, I mean, my advice there would be just try something and experiment, and you'll be amazed at how easy it is to learn through trial and error. Um, another gotcha is a lack on the quality control on the outputs of AI. AI is going to make mistakes, especially in the beginning. And I had brought up earlier to be iterative. So if you're iterative in this process, correcting AI when it makes a mistake, it's going to learn and it's going to get better. Another kind of gotcha is if you try to automate a process that's broken instead of fixing it before you do the automation, right? So it'll get better and faster at doing the thing wrong if you don't fix the process first. Another gotcha is an unclear data ownership or data plan. When nobody knows which version of the spreadsheet is real or where the source of truth is for data, you may not be working from the right data and you'll see mistakes. Another one, over customization. You're wanting AI to do too much on day one. Start small and get that one thing right and grow from there. Um, I guess another one is IT teams not being involved early enough. If you've got an I team, they can help you know what that source of the truth is for your data. And then another element to this with IT is that they can help you consider security implications of using AI in particular ways. Um, in terms of automations you can implement in under 30 days, web form entries to a CRM system with potential data enhancement, right? So you get someone fills out a form and they tell you their company name and what they're interested in. Well, you can use AI maybe to go out and do a little bit of research that tells you a little bit more about that company, and that can all be part of the CRM entry. Similarly, you can use automation to ingest emails into your ERP system or automate the creation of SOPs. Um, yeah, those are the some pretty easy ones. Steve, I wanted to take a quick break as we get away from the planned agenda, just to perhaps go through a quick demo.
Sure.
Um, I'm going to share my screen. Okay. Let me know when you can see it.
Nothing yet.
Nothing. Oh, that's unfortunate. Yeah, it's classic demos. Okay, it's not going to work. So you know what? I will do this in the recording afterwards, and
Oh, your screen just appeared.
it did.
Job traveler, CNC machining operation.
Sweet. Okay, great. All right. With something in the middle of it all. All right. So this document is an example of a job traveler that might work through a manufacturing process and guide the operators at different levels, right? You're probably all familiar with this if you are a manufacturer. You might say, okay, hey, how can I use AI to improve the throughput of my jobs with better quality and so forth? So I'm just going to bring up a Chat GPT window here. I already uploaded the document, and this is the prompt that I'm going to give it. I'm saying, okay, you are a process improvement expert for manufacturing. Review this job traveler and identify steps that are ambiguous or error prone, opportunities to reduce rework or variability, missing quality checks or documentation, and give me suggestions to make this easier for a new operator and summarize your recommendations in clear bullet points. So I'm going to send that and let's see what it does. And this is how easy that was. So it's addressing each area one step at a time. So it talks about first the ambiguous or error-prone areas. It then talks about opportunities to reduce rework or variability, missing quality checks, and how it might make it easy, might make it better. And then a summary of key recommendations. So that's with just taking that existing document that we had for that job and uploading that and asking intelligent questions, AI can really be, as Roland indicated, a force multiplier by being that quality person and injecting process improvement for you in ways that you may not be thinking of. All right, that's the demo. Just thought I'd throw one of those in there. It wouldn't be a very fun webinar.
All right, I'm glad it worked out. So we're going to move on to our next segment, which is a lightning round, some rapid takeaways for our audience here. Please try to keep your answers to about 30 seconds maximum. You guys are super efficient, so I know we'll be fine. First question, number one, what is the first AI project you recommend for a manufacturer just starting out? Rick, we'll start with you.
Uh, Replace one repeated manual workflow with AI, be it RFQ intake, SOP generation, reporting, or lead intake.
Okay,
Yep.
good. Amanda, what about that first AI project that you would recommend for a manufacturer?
Yeah, I think starting with taking documentation you write, so an email, summarization for notes, and just starting to get comfortable with AI by entering that information into the prompts.
All right. Roland, you're pretty advanced, but what's the first AI project that you'd recommend?
From a manufacturing standpoint, I would use it for either solving a machining speed or feed problem or getting into a machine maintenance problem. My machine is doing this. I don't know why. Here's the model number, here's the specifics, and just interact with it.
Okay, very good. So our next question, we're going to talk about those pesky humans for a minute. What is one habit leaders should develop to work effectively with AI? Rick, we'll start with you again.
Ask, should a human be doing this before you assign work to somebody?
Okay, good. Amanda,
Think start using AI to take your notes and to dictate your information because it's so much faster.
for sure. Roland, what do you think?
So I think this is tough. I think there's a lot of fear among people about workforce replacement. So I think as a leader, you just have to stress this is a tool to enhance the people I have, the staff I have, the knowledge I have, and this isn't Skynet.
Very good. All right, our third and final lightning round question. What is one thing manufacturers should stop doing immediately? We probably talked about this a little bit. Rick, can you give a twist to this one?
Yeah, stop taking meeting notes. Let
Okay.
AI do it. You're going to get more attentive participants, you're going to get better discussions, and you're going to get clearer action items in the end.
I like it. Amanda, what do you think?
I think stop only using free tools.
Mm,
Consider choosing at least one tool, if not a couple, that you're going to pay for a subscription. You'll get better results and, be able to pit the models against each other.
okay, good. Roland, what is one thing manufacturers should stop doing immediately?
I don't have a bullet point that would go into this amongst the other things.
Okay.
And I don't telling people what not to do isn't my livelihood, so I don't know.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. All right, so we're going to move into our audience Q&A. So we'll now open the floor for your questions. Again, there's that Q&A box you can use. Feel free to direct your question to a specific panelist, or I can help you choose who should take it. And I see first question already. What ERPs do you use in your companies? So Roland, that one feels like it might be for you.
We are Epicor, and it's the software as a service online. And part of what pushed us to this is that my primary coding engineer is all working on a transition from kind of an application base to a web base with them. So I don't have them available. And we didn't want to just say we can't do any coding until we're done with the ERP.
Okay. Amanda, I'd like to have you take a crack at this as well because you talk to so many manufacturers. What ERPs do you see them using?
We see similar systems to that. Sometimes, there's different software that's utilized, but same kind of approach. Like often, as Roland is saying, there's an internal expert that is responsible for programming, but most of the time people are using just third-party software where it's set up initially and then they're just using it as a tool. So one of the things we see a lot for the different manufacturers we talk to is that each of the platforms is starting to have AI-enabled functionality. And so having more ability to go into your ERP system and ask different questions about your ERP data using little chat boxes or those kind of things are what's coming down the pipeline. And so that's what manufacturers often are testing out.
Okay. Rick, would you like to add anything to the ERP question?
Uh, no, other than I think AI is probably going to be a driver for organizations that are behind in ERP systems to maybe try to catch up so it can start integrating with some of those systems. I've worked with a number of clients who are on some pretty outdated systems where the APIs aren't very robust. And they may have some issues eventually integrating to AI.
Okay, good. Here's another great question, that tribal knowledge. What's the most effective way to eliminate tribal knowledge? Do you just record all conversations for new hires and then throw them into an LLM for summarizing? Roland, what do you think of that one?
Um, I think it's impractical. I think that there are the high level things that you might think of that everybody should know. But there's a lot of stuff that I think would take a lot of effort to dive down into, especially on your key long-term kind of employees. So I think, we're experimenting with those kind of general procedures and then adding in observations. We're kind of doing a company FAQ. It's one of the things that we're using with Gemini. If somebody asks me a question, I write the answer into a document so that people have access to it. And if somebody asks me a question a second time, I say, could you go ask that question to Gem and see if it can answer it? I think it's a risk. I think, I think that there's a lot of companies, especially small companies, that depend on a few people with a lot of knowledge to kind of coordinate a lot of activities. And I think this is maybe a tool. I don't know if it's the tool, and I think it's going to take a lot of experimentation to get there.
Okay, we got a number of questions coming in. Rick, I'm going to ask you this next one because it seems like it has a real IT flavor to it. How to use AI for confidential IP development, aka where is or who owns the AI data, both prompts and outputs?
Yeah, that's a great question. So most of your frontier models, and frontier models are Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, the big here's a prompt and ask me a question kind of thing. Most of those have different membership tiers or subscriptions. Uh, I in ChatGPT, I use one called Teams, which the ChatGPT cannot use the data that I enter there, either the questions or the results of that, or the uploads, any of that, to train their models. And the only people who get access to it are people on my team that I allow in.
Okay.
So other frontier models typically have that.
Got it. And Amanda, you're talking to a lot of manufacturers, so I'll ask this question of you. Is anyone using an AI framework or platform that keeps company data confidential without having to build and maintain a private AI bubble internally?
Yeah, these are more slightly more advanced topics, beyond just the subscriptions that Rick is talking about.
Mhm.
So there's sort of two approaches though that companies take. One is there is an even kind of higher tier of paying for things. You can pay for, a version or a location of where it's keeping your data that's different in some cases than where even regular paid tiered folks would have their data. So that's one option. Sometimes it's called enterprise level controls, and sometimes it's a separate provider, but you're kind of paying to store it separately and kind of still off site, but kind of more locked down. The other option is to download a large language model onto your own servers and control that. And that can be large or it can just be sort of a subset. And both of those approaches kind of take a bunch of extra research and expertise to make sure you're selecting the right one and you understand like the security implications. But for sure, I mean, even in the southern tier, we have clients that have downloaded their own large language model and manage that security right within their facility, and also separate ones that kind of leverage these higher level enterprise controls. That's especially important, both of these topics for certain industries where data is extra sensitive, and people still want to leverage AI. So those are two approaches. But the best bet, if you don't have internal expertise, is to seek out a third party source that can help give you information about those.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
just one comment to add there. Amanda, you brought up the bringing the model in-house. This is a space that I'm seeing a lot of movement in terms of both uh, the size required to do this. So initially, you needed to have a really large environment to be able to accommodate an LLM in your environment. LLM is large language model. They have made strides in optimizing the amount of information and so forth that you need to keep locally, to the point where you can host it on a very reasonable system now.
Okay, good. Next question. What type of training, if any, are you using to better equip your employees on using AI? Roland, this feels like a good one for you. Could you talk about the training that you've provided to employees?
Uh, yeah. So this really started out kind of with the AMT overview. And then we have actually we wrote first an internal kind of security policy of what we are comfortable having put into an LLM, what we aren't. And we kind of everybody who is an email user or basically in our system, we went over that. But then our training has largely been small groups and really uh, focused on pick an example and explore it together. So kind of lead into things. My machinists, I've done some specific work with them. My maintenance guys were already kind of pushing the envelope before we were kind of doing it outside of that. So I don't mean a negative connotation with it, but it's almost a certain level of not training, but just support. Working along somebody who, when they see the frustration, they don't stop, right? They just, just kind of tell people you're not doing it wrong. You're just kind of learning the ropes with it. So we've been a mix of kind of structured. We've been a mix of breakout sessions. We have not really pushed any large tools yet. Most are small departmental things, but we did do kind of the cross the board policy thing.
And then how long do you spend working on this with these groups? You take an hour, a half day, a whole day?
Was that to me? Sorry.
Yeah, yes, I'm sorry.
Um,
Yes.
so it varies. When I started with the scheduling project, my engineer and I kind of locked ourselves in a room for 4 hours, and we're just kind of doing stuff. And it was incredibly infuriating because the way he writes a prompt is the way the Pony Express would deliver mail across the desert, and I'm more Tolstoy. So it was who had the keyboard would be more frustrating. The My machinists, I actually worked with them kind of just right out in the area. It would be we're doing something different, we're wrestling chatter, we jump right into Gemini and put information in and kind of follow it down the rabbit hole, figure out if we want to buy a different tool, figure out if it's just machine capability. So to me, it's really tailored. Um, I think when people are looking at like our sales manager is trying to work on that tribal knowledge, that FAQ element, and he's kind of keeps thinking of things from the standpoint of what he needs to get out of it. And for me, it's been working with him to just say, it's not what you're going to get out of it. It's what the people who report to you that a brand new hire CSR, they're not even going to understand the terminology. How do you put things in? Yes, a procedure is dry, but you have to know what to look for. You have to know what to exist. Look at it from the user. And I think that's where we're starting to get the bigger responses. And to me, it's a priority. I have probably put more hours than the people I work for really know into this. But I feel like you need a champion, right? You need somebody or something, especially in a small organization, who's going to figure out how to get other people comfortable in the water.
Okay, good. And I think you may have answered this next one, Roland. Let me know if there's anything you would add, though. You mentioned generating apps and keeping your end user in mind. Can you give an overview of how this is rolled out and used by your teams?
So unfortunately, that's a little premature because we're still
Mhm.
more in the development. Um, but what I did in development is I actually took a lot of my key successful build cell operators, and I had them come in to share kind of what I'm looking to do and why I'm looking to do it. And up front, people are like, oh, you're just using AI to get more out of us. But then when you start to show them examples of like, here's where conflicts occur, here's where they start to see that this is about, it's not cherry picking, it's not, it's trying to actually solve a problem that they don't realize how much they're wrestling with it on a day-to-day basis. So I've pulled people in the construction phase. I've To me, the what my plant engineer did with getting to the web app, we didn't even have in mind what a JSON web app was until AI told us about it and how to make it. If you gave me a dry erase board and I wrote in what I wanted my input screen to look out with box and markers and what input I need, what he made looks exactly like that. So, I think it is, I don't know. The point eludes me as it often does, but it's get people involved, and
Sure.
kind of pull it along. So I can tell you more in 2 months.
Okay, that sounds good. So we're past the 2 o'clock mark slightly. I'm going to move into the closing part of this. So I'd like to thank our panelists immensely, Roland, Amanda, and Rick. Your insights have been fantastic, and thanks also to our audience for joining us today and asking questions. And hopefully you've learned a lot. Listen, the key takeaway, Amanda made this point early on, is AI is not a futuristic concept. It's something that manufacturers can begin and should begin using right now to increase their capability, improve decision making, and accelerate innovation. If you don't believe it's possible, I think Roland has shown that it is. For follow-up support, please reach out to your local New York MEP center or reach out to FuzeHub at fuzehub.com. You can fill out a request a free consultation form. There's a big button right in the middle of the homepage that lets you do that. And we'll find the answer to your question. We'll get you in touch with that local MEP center, get you in touch with someone in our network to help you get started. So again, thanks everybody for attending and have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Thank you.